And it's that time of the week again. Yes, it's Portsmouth Authors Collective with myself, Laurie Westron, and our guest author this week, S.A. Ballantyne. I'll tell you a little bit about Scott. He was born and raised in Portsmouth. Although he has struggled with reading from a young age, he is passionate about storytelling. He combines his life experiences with his imagination to create innovative, contemporary and urban fiction. And he also enjoys writing poetry. The book we're going to be talking about today is Seaside City, The Tides of Change compilation. The Tides of Change compilation is the first book in the Seaside City series. It features 6 genre-bending novelettes. Each follows a different story and all take place in the same seaside city of Rockshore. Some characters' stories will interlink and others will never meet. Scott, welcome to Victory.
Thank you very much for having me, Bob.
I'm really intrigued with the fact that you're an author that has admitted you struggle with reading.
Yes, and it's been quite a challenging journey, but also a very enjoyable one.
As a writer, what is that like for you? Try and explain that.
My problems with reading are I can scan for information, but when it comes to reading for enjoyment, I have more difficulties with that because I've got a very intrusive imagination, which as a writer is quite a good asset once I've managed to channel how to use it. But like I say, in terms of writing the story, it's more of it's just been trying to train it for quite a long time.
Yeah, how does it influence your process as a writer?
Where it's been quite a challenge, and I have to use quite a lot of different forms of media and very much looking at life itself. And with that intrusive imagination I was talking about, having trained that, it's now a bit of an idea machine, so it never turns off. So like if I'm going out and about looking at stuff, you can catch just glimpses of conversations and it's like, that could spin off into a complete new idea, and it will probably have absolutely nothing to do with whatever I've just heard from whatever snippet of society, but it can work for me.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So what inspired the idea of the Seaside City?
Like I say, looking at a lot of different various forms of media, I've got a very eclectic taste in stories of all sorts of genres. I went to the cinema to see the Sex and the City film. I also saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. So, and I really like the idea of a concept of having a city which contains all these sorts of different stories that are going on at the same time. So I think it very much is like life itself. Like with Portsmouth, for instance, I imagine there'll be a lot of people having a really good day and a lot of people having a really bad day. And this has given me such a creative kind of sandpit to play in.
I like that. That's a typical author statement, isn't it? A sandpit to play in. Wonderful. Is the Seaside City of Rockshore, is it based on a real city?
It's heavily influenced by my experience in Portsmouth, but it's also trying to capture what a lot of English cities will be like, or Britain in general for that matter. Like I say, there's all these different sort of stories going on, but it's heavily fictionalized, so it's probably more equivalent to it's like the Gotham City version of Portsmouth.
That's great. Let's try and get into your imagination a little more. And can you tell me about maybe some of the characters that are in the stories?
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of pick and mix. It's basically like a pick and mix of characters here. And from a selling perspective, it's quite challenging because a lot of the time people will focus on just one character, but my book's got a lot of characters in it. Just a couple examples. We've got like Jack, who's main character in my first story, and their political liabilities, and he's sort of like a new age kind of nomad. So he's grown up in this foster care system, and he's been sort of shifted from family to family. He's ran away from a few, and that's become a part of his identity and who he is. So he likes to he's just couch hopping between friends, and he's formed like this citywide family network. Then we've got Ian, who's a professional wrestler. I've been a lifelong wrestling fan. Also run a group called Wrestling Fans of Portsmouth, so I'd give a shout out to that. So then We've got Shelley, who's a psychology student, and she's a very brilliant and intelligent girl, but she gets bored quite easily as well, and she sometimes likes creating a bit of mischief, and she's looking for excitement within the seaside city, but that may put her in some danger. We'll have to read and find out, I guess.
That's setting the scene a little bit, isn't it? So the book is a series of stories?
Yes, it's a series of stories, but they also some of them run parallel, so they can interlink, and there'll be certain events which will affect like a number of stories, and there'll be maybe one or two events which affects all the stories in some way.
And do the characters crop up in each story or occasional?
Occasional. It's quite, I suppose it's a little bit like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where you never quite know who you're going to see when. So, and a side character in one story can be a main character in another, and vice versa. And there'll be some noteworthy side characters which will pop up, which may have their own story further down the line.
Sounds very intriguing. I sit here regularly doing these interviews and talking to authors, and it makes me want to read their book. My TBR, to be read list, is massive now. However, maybe one day before the end of my life I would have read them all and got through all of Portsmouth Authors Collective books, which I never will because the organisation grows on a weekly basis. But yours sounds very intriguing, Scott, and I would really like to keep that book you've put on my desk, and I will get into it at some point. Are you writing anything else at the moment?
I am, but I'm keeping it heavily under wraps.
It's a secret. We've talked about your, can we say, wild imagination?
Yeah.
So does that help or hinder when you're trying to write?
When I started, I was trying to write like novels, and in that it was more of a hindrance because I'd get all these ideas, and the main characters I was writing for, they were starting to fade a little bit, and then the side characters would pop up. But over a period of, it's been about 5 years since I've produced the first one, and I've been writing behind the scenes ever since.
So has that become a discipline for you to get hold of your imagination, tie it down a bit?
Yeah, I suppose I'm very interested in hearing its voice when I'm out and about, but it's when I'm sort of task focused, that's where it's become more of a discipline and training after a while.
You told me earlier you're a night worker, and that's where you get a lot of your ideas.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've always been more of a nocturnal kind of guy, and I have my trusty iron brew with me a lot of the time.
Which I believe you're famous for. So NDP stands for Night Desk Publishing.
Publications, yes.
So are you self-published?
I am, yeah. Because Night Desk Publications is my own sort of brand. That's correct, yeah. So, and it's the sort of thing where I am, like, the project I'm working on at the minute, which I can't really talk about, is a non-Seaside City project.
So the non-Seaside City project's secret will be revealed one day.
Yeah.
Scott, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I will read your book, Seaside City, The Tides of Change compilation. It won't be today, and it probably won't be tomorrow, but it will be somewhere in the not-too-distant future. Before you go, let us know where your books are available.
They're available through Ballantyne.com, where if you want to support me as an author, I do get a little bit of a kickback from links clicked on that site. There's also a lot of free content on there, and Seaside City lore and poetry and all sorts of fun gimmicks. Then there's the Fratton Bookshop down in Fratton Bridge Centre. If people want, there's limited copies in there if people want to come in and purchase it in person.
That's great. It's been fun talking to you, and you have set the scene to make me want to read your book, and I hope you've done the same for our listener.
Thank you very much, Bob. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for coming in. And further to that, Scott, I have got the song you've chosen, which is indeed Come As You Are by Nirvana. It's a song from 1992. We'll be back after this to talk to Laurie Westron. And Laurie's in the room. Laurie, how are you?
Hiya, Bob. I'm great, thanks.
Nice for you to be in. No, it's nice for me for you to be in, but Scott was great, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. I've only known him a few weeks, but he's a lovely guy, isn't he?
He really is. He did admit when he first came the studio that he said I might be a bit nervous, but he was really good.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think when people are talking about their own work, they know it, and so they are quite fluent, and they're the best people to promote their work.
Yeah, I was intrigued by his admission that he's got a wild imagination, and getting to the end of a story must be quite difficult when you're like that.
Well, yeah, because the story is going to continue, and the next chapter, the next episode, and yeah, you could see that his mind. He's got a very active, creative mind that will run and run.
Active, creative mind. I love that. That's a nice description, and a really sweet guy. Really nice.
Yeah.